Hello, everyone. Welcome to Miami Beach Urban Studios. My name is Colette Mello, and I'm in conversation today with fiber artist Nneka Jones. Thank you all for joining us this evening. FIU Miami Beach Urban Studios, known as MBUS, is an incubator for communication, architecture, and the arts, and a collider for people, design, and technology. I'd like to thank Miami Beach Department of Tourism and Office of Cultural Affairs for sponsoring these art talks. Nneka Jones is a multimedia artist that works in painting, photography, and fiber arts. Her creative practice embraces activism, and her hyper-realistic fiber works examines social justice, sex abuse, and human trafficking. Her work was recently featured on the August-September Time magazine cover, and she has a new book out titled Nneka Jones, Targeted Truth, Threading the Reality of Society. Ms. Jones has a BFA from the University of Tampa with a minor in marketing. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind everyone that if you have comments or questions, to make them through the chat function, and I will try to get to them throughout our conversation. Hi, Nneka, it's great seeing you. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Hi, thank you so much for the great introduction. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And just so you know, and our guests know, this is the beginning of Art Week. So you're our first inaugural speaker for this crazy 2020 Art Week that happened through the pandemic. So first of all, just share with us where you are. Is that your studio, or how have you been since all of this started?
Of course. So, of course, it's been a very chaotic year. I'm actually currently in Tampa, Florida, but originally from Trinidad and Tobago. So, I'm actually in my home space, which is now my studio, just because of how things transitioned from COVID. So, the pieces that you see behind me are pieces that I usually make at home. But yeah, I'm at home in Tampa.
How long have you lived in Tampa?
So I came in 2016. This would be about 4 years now.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, get things
Great.
started. Just want to confirm that everybody can see.
Perfect.
Sounds good. So in today's presentation, just like another reminder, my name is Nneka Jones. I'm the founder of Are You Hungry? And I actually kind of wanted this presentation to be about how I changed my doubts into having big dreams about art and then making those dreams reality, all in 2020 during a pandemic. So just a little background information about me. I was born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago. I actually moved to the United States again in 2016, and specifically to pursue a career in arts and an education in arts. So most of my artwork that I did while I was at school, as you can see in the picture on the right, was sculptures and very influenced by Caribbean culture. So a lot of my work had that kind of vibrant look in terms of the flamboyant colors that I used, and I was also captivated by portraits. I was always into faces. So in my early works, you could see that I included the Trinidadian culture, and that translated more so in the form of women, which is interesting because I kind of continued that as I came to the United States, but just in a different form. So in the picture that you see on the left, it's actually an image that was captured during a festival in Trinidad. It's called Carnival. It's a street parade. So I was kind of forming my artistic ability and using my technical skills to capture these moments that not everybody sees with regards to people in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean as a whole, because oftentimes people would think of the Caribbean and think it's just beaches and it's a vacation paradise, and we don't really do anything there but just relax. My work was kind of going beyond that and trying to capture the beauty of the people but also what we do and the life that we live while we're there. But something was missing when I was in Trinidad and I was doing all of those pieces. I felt like I wanted my work to be more contemporary, and the resources that were available in Trinidad at the time, it just didn't fit what I wanted to do. So I actually won a national scholarship, and it afforded me the ability to study in the United States. And I did some research and I came across the University of Tampa. And so that's when everything changed. And of course, I was still influenced by the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago, and my background being rooted in Caribbean culture. But my work evolved to the point where I was merging what patterns that I had seen in Trinidad and in the Caribbean as a whole with things that I had seen in the US when I came. And I took a couple of classes with a professor by the name of Chris Valet, who is a painting professor. And so, because I was always influenced by sculpture and painting, I really, really enjoyed hyper realistic paintings. And I had actually seen his work in a faculty gallery exhibition at the University of Tampa. And I was like, I have to, there's no way I'm not taking a class with this professor. I need my work to be on his level, and he needs to teach me how to achieve that level of hyperrealism. And so I started taking classes with him and honing my skills with realism. But it's interesting because he kind of pushed me beyond that comfort zone. It's like he saw something in my work that could exist outside of painting. And so that's when I started experimenting with condoms and embroidery and fiber arts. And so my pieces start to evolve from what you had seen before previously, where I was capturing these images or stills of Caribbean life and the essence of Caribbean life, to focusing on using those same flamboyant colors, but to capture the attention of my audience and bring awareness to things that people often overlook in society. And so with this condom series, he actually did an interview with a couple of students in the class and asked us questions about what we were influenced by or what we really wanted our work to speak about. And so after the interview, I'm thinking, okay, he's just gonna give me like paint or something to paint, obviously. And I had read my email the next day and I saw the instruction to gather hundreds of condoms. And I was like, how do you connect what I told you in this interview to just gather hundreds of condoms? So I went to class the next day and I was actually speaking to him about something else. And then the conversation came up about the condoms. I was like, how does this relate to what we spoke about in class? And he was like, the answers that you gave, think back on them. And when I did, it was related to, again, women, but mostly issues surrounding women, social injustice issues. And I had to find a way to merge the content that I thought of in the interview with the material that he had given me. And so that's when I started doing more research on how I could do this and how I could combine my love for realism and my love for portraits with symbolism and materials. So this is my sex target series, and you can see I really start to come outside of my comfort zone. One, because I'm working with a very strange material that people don't often use for paintings, but also I'm working on a much larger scale, and I'm working to use my paintings not just for aesthetics. So these are just snapshots of me working in the studio at UT at the time. And my work was kind of developing into a series, because that's what I really wanted when I initially was looking into the art department at the University of Tampa. I wanted to have a sense of someone being able to look at my work and say, okay, that's Nneka Jones's work, not just having different pieces. So my work, the more research that I did and the more that I practiced and experimented, trial and error, was the more that my work kind of came together and made sense as a body of work. And so I actually continued doing classes with him just because I enjoyed how he pushed me beyond my boundaries, and he allowed me my artistic freedom to experiment, but also he gave me that guidance that I needed. And so I took an experimental painting class, and he was like, okay, you've honed your skills with painting, like you can do all of that. That's boring now. Now we're going to do painting without using paint. So find some kind of material. This time I had to find the material. He wasn't giving it to me. Find some kind of material that you can use or manipulate to create that same effect that you would get when doing a painting. So I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this now? I came to the University of Tampa specifically to be a painter. How am I now finding materials that have to look like paint? I can't even use paint. So I started doing a lot more research on different artists that were using different media. Some people using like pencil shavings, string, yarn, different things. And I came across a couple of embroidery artists who did landscapes. And I was like, I'm into portraits, and I feel like this is something that I have the potential to manipulate, kind of, to create a series of work as I had done with my condom pieces. And so for the first piece that I did, I actually decided to do myself just because it was a little bit ambitious of me to go from painting, from drawing to painting, to completely disregarding that and working with only embroidery thread. And the only experience that I had had with embroidery was through my mom, because she actually does drapery installations and clothes alterations sometimes. So I was in the sewing room with her threading needles, or I was around textiles and fabrics, but I had never actually done contemporary artwork with embroidery. And so that's when my work kind of developed. The more pieces that I did was the more comfortable I got with using embroidery. And I was able to kind of translate the work that I did with my condom pieces, bringing that into the embroidery and merging it to, again, raise awareness about topics that people are uncomfortable talking about. So my aim for my work at the time was to make you uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. And the more pieces that I did was the more I kind of not only fell in love with embroidery, but fell in love with the process of thinking up of this image, executing it, and having people recognize that image and have that emotion evoked out of the person. And so this was my first embroidery piece series that I had completed. And my work, again, continued to develop from then. So I was like, okay, I did the embroidery on canvas. How can I change the canvas? Or how can I change the perspective so that the person who's looking at my work is not getting comfortable with looking at the same thing over and over? I want to change the angle so that you look at things from different perspectives. And so my series kind of evolved from highlighting victims and changed more so to women taking authority over their bodies and taking back that authority over their beauty, etc. So you will see mine if I go back, where in this image, the first series that I did, the figure is actually head on, they're facing you. And as my work kind of evolved, I started changing the position of the figure so it's more authoritative. And using my colors more specifically to really capture the audience and the view of the audience. And so this is just like the process of how I actually stitched, and it really involved a lot of I wouldn't say technical skill, but tough skin, because very early on I would like stick myself with the needle a lot just because I was not familiar with the process. I still do that now, but I'm a lot more comfortable, and I know how to maneuver around the canvas. But
So,
throughout this entire time,
I'm sorry. So your work, when you started the embroidery, you really hadn't embroidered before, correct? You were kind of just teaching yourself
right,
techniques.
as I went along, right. And throughout this entire time, I had people asking me while I was on campus with other friends, also, what are you majoring in, or what are you doing? That was the big question. And everybody else's major was like finance or management, or something that people thought of very highly. And when I would say art, they would be like, and what? Like, are you doing a second major, or is that just like, are you doing that as a hobby? So even while I was in Trinidad, I still had that doubt of, can I really sustain a career as an artist? Yes, I'm doing all of these things. Yes, I'm experimenting with all of these things, but how is this going to help me be successful in the long run? Can I really achieve this? And so actually in my second semester at UT, I went to my advisor and I was like, I'm throwing in the towel. I'm actually switching to a marketing major because I feel like I should have art more as like a hobby. So I'll do art as my minor. And he looked at me and he said, Nneka, absolutely not. You've been here for only a while and you haven't given us the opportunity to prove to you what you are capable of doing. So he actually told me, give them one more semester, just one more semester, take a few more art classes, but really try to experiment. And that was what I loved about the program at the University of Tampa, was that they gave you the ability to, if I said I wanted to be a painter, I wanted to concentrate in painting, I still had that opportunity to experiment with printmaking and drawing and all of these other experimentations that led me to falling in love with embroidery. And so that's what I did. And I actually fell in love with the art program. I started doing and getting involved with the art community there, doing murals, etc., art competitions. And I kind of grew, like the community became a part of me and I became a part of the community simultaneously. And it was hard for me to say, I can't see myself. It kind of switched to, I can definitely see myself being successful and having this love and passion for art for the rest of my life. And so I actually went back to him and I told him, okay, I've made my decision. I'm gonna do art as my major, but I still want to add marketing as my minor because I think it would still be a good combination to have. And so that's what I did, and my work kind of blossomed from there. And then things took a turn in 2020 where for my graduating show or my final show, of course, I was working hard all semester. I'm like, okay, I have to pump out all of these pieces because my family is going to see my work in person for the first time. And my professors are going to see my full body of work for the first time. And it was actually going to be my chance to not only show my work in the classroom in a critique setting, but actually in the student gallery in a professional manner. And so that's when things flipped. And COVID happened. I lost the opportunity to have my things shown in the gallery, but also we lost our graduation, and my graduation was actually virtual. So this is actually a screenshot from when I was having my graduation and having my family there still. But of course, you can see in my room, there are no art pieces on the wall or anything like that. So I actually felt scared at that time, going back to the doubt, and very discouraged. Because one, there was COVID, there was a pandemic happening. Two, I had lost access to my studio at school, so I didn't have the equipment. I didn't have that creative energy of having my friends around me. I didn't have the critiques of my professors anymore. My family wasn't able to come see my work in person. My actual graduation was canceled. What I've been working 4 years to walk across that stage, that feeling was gone, or that having that feeling and being on the stage was gone. And then things actually got kind of worse as the year went along, where the video with George Floyd started to circulate and there were Black Lives Matter protests, etc. And I kind of didn't want to create art anymore because I felt like there was no point in me. There was a pandemic. It's not like my work can be seen anywhere. And just because of how much I have to actually be physically involved in the process of embroidery, I just wasn't motivated to do anything. So when I saw the video of George Floyd circulating, I actually felt that urge again of me needing to do something. And going back to the thing that kind of solidified my art career was painting. I decided to do a painting of him, but also record the process of me actually doing it. So I did that and posted it on Instagram. And of course, a lot of people were commenting and saying it really captured his essence, and they were glad that I was able to do it and capture him in a great light because the media was kind of portraying it in a different sense. And so from that, things took a turn again, and someone from Time magazine actually emailed me. And at first I thought it was a scam. So I was like, there's no way that somebody from Time magazine can be emailing me. So I actually messaged my sisters right away and messaged my parents. I was like, somebody from Time magazine emailed me. I don't know if it's real. I don't know if I should respond. I don't know if it's a scam. And they were like, did you do your research? And I was like, no. So we actually did some research, and we saw that his name was on the website and everything. His name is Victor Williams. So my sister suggested that if I do get into contact with him, that I should make it a video call, just so that I could see that it's actually a real person. And so that's what I did. And he was real. And that first opportunity actually fell through again because 2020 is just going so great. Yeah, it actually fell through, but they actually selected an artist whose work was absolutely amazing. So I was happy for the artist, but at the same time, it was disappointing for me and kind of embarrassing because I'm like telling everybody, oh my God, somebody from Time magazine contacted me, and then that fell through. So he actually emailed me right after, and he was like, Nneka, don't worry about it. We see potential in your work. We can't even believe that what you do is with embroidery. And we are definitely going to include you in one of our issues this year. But in the back of my mind, I'm just like, yeah, you're just telling me that because you have to tell me that, basically. So I was like, okay, thank you so much. And I kind of went on creating pieces, but still not with that motivation, just because of everything going on with the pandemic at the time. And then about a month later, I noticed that I had seen another email come through from him, and this time it had the word cover in the email heading. So I was like, I definitely have to open this. So I did again, but I was still skeptical about it actually playing out and it actually happening. And so this time I actually took caution and I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anyone in my family. I didn't tell my friends, nothing. So I just kind of had that interaction with him and I alone going back and forth. And only when it was officially published on the Time magazine website was when I actually called my family and I told them.
Oh, you waited.
Yes. Only when it was officially published was.
That is a fantastic story that you shared, and good, amazing that. And how did he find your work again?
Through Instagram.
Through Instagram.
Yes. So, but that story has another story within it where not only did I have to complete a hand embroidered piece for the cover of Time magazine, I had to complete it in 24 hours.
Wow. And I know how I don't embroider. I've tried it a couple times and it's very difficult. So I can imagine that you had to do this in 24 hours, how your hands must have been hurting or raw or yes.
Yes, my fingers were gone. I actually, while doing it, I was like, Nneka, what are you doing? Why did you commit to this? Like you're now starting out with embroidery. Why did you commit to something to do in 24 hours when you don't even know if you can complete this? But by the grace of God, I completed it. And funny thing is, we had planned initially to complete the entire flag hand embroidered. And while I was working, I think like 2 a.m., he called me and he was like, is it possible for us to leave the flag a little bit incomplete? So we actually had that conversation going back and forth, and we were like, yeah, it would make sense and add to the meaning of it being a work in progress and not something that's going to happen overnight, which is kind of funny because it actually did happen overnight. But in terms of the meaning of the actual cover, um, and that's why the needle you can see on the right is left in the canvas, because it really deals with optimism and viewing a better future for America relating to unity. But again, going back to that point of everybody needs to be involved, and it's not something that's going to be in the blink of an eye. And so things kind of started picking up right after that. Of course, my family was happy to hear that my work was on the cover of Time magazine, but a lot of people from Trinidad also were contacting me and telling me how proud they were. And it kind of went full circle for me because it reassured me the reason for me coming to the United States to pursue an education. Again, because I felt like something was missing in Trinidad. And of course, I would love to, at a point in time where I'm able to give back and fill that gap where it's missing. I'm glad that I'm able to not only make my country proud, but also demonstrate that you can achieve greatness with art. And you don't have to be a lawyer or a scientist or whatever to be successful. I can still be successful and I can still have big dreams as an artist. And that's kind of like throughout the months after Time, I've gotten a lot of opportunities where I was able to work with Adobe. This shot was from me speaking at Adobe MAX this year virtually. And I actually was able to launch my first book, Targeted Truth, where I speak about my discovery of embroidery and the meaning behind my pieces, and kind of how things evolved from me being just a painter and wanting to paint into completely erasing that and not using paint at all. The series has zero paint on it behind me, and just using thread or found materials or everyday materials. And then I actually recently did a mural for St. Petersburg Shrine Festival. This year they actually wanted to focus on environmentalism and the ocean. And I teamed up with an artist by the name of Bianca, and we were able to complete it, get it done, girl power. And it really shows me that, one, being an artist doesn't necessarily mean that you just sit in your studio and draw all day or you're limited to one specific medium. The opportunities are literally endless. You can be on the cover of Time magazine, you can be a muralist, you can be a panelist, you can be so many different things while being an artist, and there's so many different opportunities. And I'm so grateful that I've had the support of not only my family and friends, but also the ability to have an education and also have that passion and that drive to continue to defy all odds and stereotypes in relation to being an artist and achieving a long-standing art career. So, just a few takeaways. Um, Doubts actually, I think, are very important, not only for creatives, but just in general, because I think it has kept me humble, but also motivated, just because I'm always on my toes. If I feel like I've made it and I'm completely done, then that's not going to serve me, because I'm never going to be able to better myself. So I think that doubts are very important, but also it's extremely important to take risks, because that's how I found my love for embroidery and using mixed media arts to raise awareness about important topics that people don't often talk about in society. So it's definitely important to step outside of your comfort zone and do things that you wouldn't normally do, because you never know, you'll find your passion doing that. But also, never let a pandemic stop your shine. And that's it. Thank you guys for listening.
That is a wonderful presentation. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
I want to open it up for questions. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. But one question that I have, I think you answered it. You said I was going to ask you about artists that are very influential that you have followed, or their historical moments in history that influence your work, or professor. I know you mentioned the one professor. Is he like your
Chris.
mentor?
I would definitely say he is. He, I feel like he changed my life and changed my view of art as a whole because I came in with that very limited view where I was like, oh, I just want to be a hyper realistic painter. And he literally taught me, like, you can make art with like just a piece of paper. You don't need expensive paints. You don't need to be a painter. You can do so many different things and have so many different skills, but still achieve that artistic um, essence that you want to have. So definitely Chris Valley at the University of Tampa. In terms of artists that I'm inspired by, I would say Bisa Butler. I follow her on Instagram. She also does, but I think her work is more like quilts and it's on a very, very large scale. She also does work with zero paints, but her work is like, it's amazing. And her ability to capture not only faces, but the entire human body and the human form just by using fabrics, it's mind blowing. So I would definitely have to say, yeah,
Her work is
Lisa and Chris.
amazing. Yes. And how about you use portraiture now? I was asking you before, are these self-portraits, or who are these young women, young girls that you're painting?
I get that question a lot. And so the first ever embroidered piece that I've done, which was this one, this is just a print of it, is a self-portrait, just because I didn't want to risk it. I didn't want anybody to say, like, you messed up my face or my nose shouldn't be like that, especially since it's the first time that I'm doing embroidery. But as my work developed and I got more comfortable with using embroidery, the images actually were combinations or collages of different young girls of color. So it's not a specific image of one girl. I actually kind of see the image in my head of how I want the final piece to be before. And then I look online and see if I can find images that match that image, go into Photoshop and then collage everything together and then transfer that to the canvas. So it's not a specific person, it's more a collage, which speaks to, I think, the meaning behind the piece. Because this is such a general concept that you want to draw the attention to your viewer, but you don't want them to say, oh, that's Beyonce in my piece. No, you want them to look at it and question, why are there holes in her face, or why is there a target symbol around her, etc. So
When you were when did you feel, when was your calling? When did you feel you were always drawing when you were a child, or
yes, I don't think there was like an aha moment. I think I've always been doodling or scribbling, or I started off drawing mostly. And I think having other people tell me, oh, that looks good or whatever is what kept me going and what kept me wanting to see, okay, if I can draw, maybe I can paint. And again, having that support of my parents telling me, okay, yeah, of course you can go ahead and do art. It's not like, oh, you have to do business, I think was helpful as well in me kind of continuing to develop my artistic skills.
do you feel that your marketing background has benefited you or informed your work, or how has that helped you get your work out in the world?
Greatly, yes. I don't know what I would have done without marketing, to be honest. I think that's why people have that perception about artists not being successful, is because they don't really teach you that in while you're in school. You need to have that kind of entrepreneurial background or some kind of business side, because there's obviously business behind the artwork. You have to know how to market yourself, not only to art collectors, but galleries as well. So definitely, I think me having the marketing as a minor is a plus, but I also think it's kind of necessary where maybe that should be implemented in the art program somehow, where it's a class that you have to do in order to pass your BFA.
So tell me what you're starting to work on now. Is there any projects, or are you experimenting with other mediums right now, or are you staying with the fiber arts?
So that's a good question. I actually got that question quite a lot before. Like, you've done embroidery now, what's next? And I think I'm still waiting on that new material. I've done a bit of research, but I feel like nothing speaks to me like how I was like, I definitely want to try embroidery. So I think it maybe just means that I have to spend a little bit more time with embroidery and not just abandon it like I did my paints. Um, but I'll definitely be doing a lot more research. Right now, this is my next step where, because the embroidery pieces that I've done prior, if you don't mind me going back, they always had paint. So the edges, the red and the yellow, those are actually painted. The red and the green, those are painted. So in the embroidery pieces that I did prior, they had paints included still in the background or not in the very focal areas. Whereas now I'm actually exploring just using fabrics and embroidery thread. So I'm completely doing away with paints. So I think that's where I'm at right now in my experimentation phase.
Well, I have a few comments. One person is saying how wonderful your work is. Thank you so much for showing it.
Thank you.
I have a comment or a question. How has the meaning of your embroidery changed from being used in assignment and now as it is relates to art practice as we speak?
I think it's changed in not only the technical sense, in terms of me, again, using no paint at all, but also the meaning of my work. I think very early on, I was still focused on, okay, I was given the material of condoms. How can I tie my embroidery pieces or my embroidery series into my work with my condoms so that everything as a whole, although it's different media, it's still viewed as one body of work. But I think now I'm kind of breaking out of that. And even in this series that you see here, which is my graduating series, I started to break out of that mold where I was like, I don't want it to be that I'm continuously depicting victims. I want the woman to take that charge back and have that authority over themselves. And so now I'm kind of exploring identity in my pieces. And with this series, it's breaking the mold and breaking different stereotypes and literally unzipping, because in the piece there's a zipper on each one. So
Those
you're
are your
literally,
newest works, correct?
yes,
The
yes. So it's
zipper.
literally like peeling away at things that we've kind of been exposed to throughout history, um, and kind of working
Oh,
backwards
I like
to
that
fix it.
metaphor. That's great.
Thank you.
I have another question. In those times where you felt uncomfortable, what made you get past it and succeed?
That's a good question. Um, I think there are two sides of it. There's the point where you kind of just have to write it out, because you're not just automatically going to flip and say, oh, I'm excited now and let's make some pieces. No, you just have to go through those emotions and feel things out, but also try to be conscious of what you want to communicate with your art, because some people just want to make art for making art's sake, and that's fine too. But I felt like my work was dealing with things that needed to grab the attention of people. So it was something that I needed to do. I needed to get off my butt, even when I felt not in the mood to create, and make work, because without making it, people aren't going to be aware, or they're just going to be ignorant to what's actually happening. So I think at first I kind of just wrote the emotions out, especially during the pandemic, where a lot of other artists that I spoke to said they felt the same way. They just didn't feel like making artwork at the time. But I think also having social media, and I'm happy that I have Instagram and Facebook, etc., because I have a community of people that encourage me to create, um, but also a community of artists that we're able to kind of feed ideas off of each other and keep each other motivated during this time.
Also, I think just working, and it is work what you're doing, it keeps your mind a little bit off the chaos
Right,
that we're living in. So you have something that you can just really focus on. So I find
right.
that helps me. Um, I have another beautiful work. Thank you. And then from one of our professors, she actually is a professor that works in fiber arts, Pip Brandt. She says sewing through canvas is very hard. So is that canvas you're using, or what kind of material are you sewing through?
Yep. Each of it's canvas. All
Oh,
of them, it's just different. Some of them are like circular, some of them are square, rectangular, etc. But all canvas.
wow. Wow. So wonderful. Your work is amazing. I am so happy that I got to meet you and we connected and you agreed to be part of our talk during Art Week. And we're almost out of time, but I wanted to just invite you to Miami when we get down here we get through the other side of this crazy pandemic.
Of course.
I would love to show you around FIU and go around to some art museums and just talk to you about art and your work, and it'd be wonderful. So if you have one last comment, or do you want to talk about a big project that you would love to work on that it's in the back of your mind that hasn't come to fruition yet, that a
Um,
dream project that you're thinking about that?
I I don't know if there's a dream project. I think I'm kind of just trying to live in the moment right now and finish off 2020 as strong as I can. So I'm really happy that I was able to not only achieve all of these things, but launch a book and continue making artwork, because I think that's important. If I didn't continue, then I wouldn't have achieved those things. I wouldn't have partnered with Adobe. I wouldn't have been able to achieve the Time magazine cover. So I just want to take the time to not only say thank you to the people that have continued to encourage me, but for all of you being here, because it's even events like this that help artists to know, okay, I'm doing something good, not only in the community, but people are interested in hearing me speak about my work or interested in seeing my work. So yeah, I'm just thankful that you guys invited me, and I can't wait to come out to Miami.
Wow. Well, thank you for being here. But I would like also to let everyone know we posted your website on our chat, and also that you're having a special right now on your book, and I think you have calendars and you have some other items that you're selling. So please, it is a holiday season, so purchase something for your friends and family. And I know there's a lot of art lovers here, so thank you again. I enjoyed meeting you, and hopefully I'm actually going to invite everyone to give you some virtual applause. They can unmute themselves. Um,
Do you want me to stop sharing my screen so that I can
oh,
see
you could do
everything?
that. Yes, that would be good. Okay, so I just
Okay.
unmuted everyone if they would like.
Yay! Woo!
Oh,
Fabulous.
thank
So
you.
fabulous.
Thank you. And it's so nice. And continue your great work, and I will keep following you, and we have to stay connected when we get through the other side of this.
Sounds good.
Thank you so
Thank you, guys.
much. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you too.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
guys.
Thank
Have a great
you.
night.
Bye.